So rumor has it, it's a little bit on the windy side out here. I'm joining you from the 9 News backyard, and that's where those those winds really kind of howling. And for the last kind of 2 hours or so, that's when you've seen those winds really just kind of kicking on up. We've seen some gusts here. I would guess if we had an anemometer, we'd be looking at about a wind gust 50, 55 miles an hour, maybe a 60 within there. Meantime, between now and 5 o'clock, that's when the worst of those winds will be, including, and those worst spots will be the foothills, the Palmer Divide, southeastern Colorado. And that's when we're expecting those worst winds. And in Denver, I mentioned this on the noon show, there's going to be a pretty big difference between what we see on the east side of the city and the west side of the city. So the east side may see wind gusts only top out about 60, maybe 65 miles an hour around the 225 corridor, DIA, maybe even downtown. You get west of I-25, you get into Beaumar on north through, again, maybe the Highlands, those areas. I think that's where you're going to be looking at perhaps wind gusts closer to about 70, 80 miles an hour as we head through the day, which is a substantial difference. That's closer to probably power outages. I know we've got about 65,000 without power statewide at this point. That number is only going to increase. All sorts of impacts, DIA, a total mess. Eldora Ski Resort closing for the day, a little bit on the early side. By the way, if you do have comments or questions, feel free to write those in. I'll check them here. If you're joining us on the Facebook side of things, I will try and answer as many of those questions as possible. But the worst of the conditions between now and 5 o'clock, again, worst of the winds, foothills, Palmer Divide, where we've already seen a couple of reports of 100-mile-an-hour winds, which is just unbelievable. All right, so the high wind warnings continue for us here through the eastern half of the state, really from the Continental Divide on east. And that's where the worst of those winds will be for probably the, again, next 4 or 5 hours. In fact, I would go to say that the southeastern part of Colorado, those winds should start to ease up in the next 2 hours or so, next hour and a half, 2 hours or so. You'll see those winds start to improve a little bit out that way. So if you're joining us from La Junta, where I know we've had enormous amount of damage out there in La Junta, in Lamar, where Lamar had an 107-mile-an-hour wind gust, things will get better for you in the next couple hours. So hang in there, everyone. That goes for everyone. Hang in there. Not too much longer to go on this one. We're in the thick of it right now. Things will get better in the next couple of hours. All right, those wind gusts. Akron, how about that? That's a hurricane force wind gust out there. 75-mile-an-hour wind gust for you. Colorado Springs, 91 for us. And the Air Force Academy had an 100-mile-an-hour wind gust at the Air Force Academy. Strongest ever wind gust recorded there at the Air Force Academy. West side of Denver, we've seen a couple of wind gusts into the 100 and 104, 105-mile-an-hour wind gusts we had earlier on at the Rocky Mountain Airport in Broomfield. Right now, 84-mile-an-hour gust for you. DIA, only a 43-mile-an-hour gust. As I mentioned, I think the east side of the city gets it a little bit better than the west side. But you look up by Blackhawk, 65-mile-an-hour wind gust. Longmont, earlier, 64-mile-an-hour gust. Right now at 48, 43 for us in Greeley. I think this is the area that right in here is going to be looking at the highest risk at power outages as we head through the next couple of hours, and I know that's where we've already seen some of those. But those winds we get over the next couple of hours, notice for us here in Denver, by about, and you can't quite see it here, the timestamp, we're looking at about 6, 7 o'clock. Those winds really do back on off for us here in Denver. So by the time the sun goes down, things will really improve for us. So again, I just kind of want to emphasize, I sometimes feel like a bit over doom and gloom. I don't want to be that way. We're in the thick of it now. Don't go driving unless you have to. I get it if you have certain things, but don't take the high-profile vehicle. I'll have some more tips for you in just a second, but just, we don't have that much more to go. You can wait on the grocery store. You can certainly wait on, I don't know. I'm trying to think of something you don't need to do right now that can wait 4 or 5 hours. Do that because, again, things will get better pretty quickly here for you. Now, as we get to about, again, tonight and tomorrow morning, early tomorrow morning, the foothills still holding on to some gusts in the 40, 50-mile-an-hour range, but it's a lot more manageable than the 70, 80, 90, 100-plus mile-an-hour stuff that we've been talking about for the last few hours. So, again, things will get better pretty quickly here. All right, foothills, look at that freaking golden. And again, the winds are for real. This is about 3 o'clock, 3:30, where those winds in downtown Denver still on the strong side, and especially just west of the city, those winds will be absolutely howling. So 105-mile-an-hour wind gusts, nothing to mess with there in the golden. Allens Park, 83. But by, again, about 6, 7 o'clock or so, this is what we're looking at. Way more manageable. I mean, again, nothing to scoff at here into the foothills. Still looking at some gusts in the 60, maybe 65-mile-an-hour range, but not nearly as bad as what we're looking at right now. And, again, things will improve pretty quickly for you And tomorrow, we do have some gusty winds, but again, not nearly as bad as today. We won't be worrying about the wind nearly as much for your day tomorrow. It's really in the here and now where we're concerned about those winds, and then things do get better. So what can you do over the next couple of hours? I've been blabbing about the wind for a little while now, right? Okay, it's windy. You know, you have 2 eyes right now. You can look outside and see it's windy, right? The thing to kind of, 3 things to kind of take away at this point. It's obviously too late to bring inside your inflatable Santa, because that inflatable Santa is probably in Lyman by now if you didn't bring it inside earlier on. So stay inside if possible. Just stay inside unless you absolutely have to. And if you do have to travel, just don't drive a high-profile vehicle. We're talking about a Sprinter van, a Jeep Wrangler, something that's kind of got those kind of big flat sides, that's tall, that can absorb more of that wind. Those are going to be more surface area to absorb that wind and potentially get blown on over. Don't drive those today. Just, you know, in my case, my fiance has a Jeep Wrangler, true story, and she said, hey, why don't you take the Jeep Wrangler? It's a bigger car, right? That's better. I was like, no, I'm going to take the small car into work today. It's a lot better for getting in or out of, again, there's less surface area with a smaller car to absorb the wind. So just keep that in mind. And then charge your phones and those laptops all day long. Make sure those are charged on up, because we do have that high risk for power outages throughout the metro area. Again, already at 65,000, number that's climbing, it seems like every 10 minutes here. So just keep that in mind. Keep those phones at 100% all day long, the laptop too. I can be guilty of letting my phone die down. In fact, my phone right now, 45%, that's not great. I'm not following my own advice. Don't be me. Meantime, as we get into the mountains, we did see some of that snow. We saw some of that grapple earlier on. Our beloved producer Cyrus Allen wanted me to mention the grapple from this morning, the super cooled water droplets that kind of ping the ground. That's what we had in Denver this morning. We had some of that is long gone. We're done with the precip. In fact, it's sunny out here in the 9 News backyard. We're done with the precip here in Denver. It's the mountains still holding on to a bit of snow, especially into the Front Range, Rocky Mountain National Park, Eldora, maybe even Loveland ski areas getting in some of that snow, and a few snow showers still straggling for us into the West Elk. So kind of Crested Butte, Gothic on north there through the Maroon Bells. That's what we're seeing again, a little bit of that snow. But most of that's over and done with for us here into Colorado. And a lot of what you're seeing in the Eastern Plains, that's virga, that's rain that evaporates before it hits the ground. Most of the rain affects some tornadoes for us out into Nebraska and Minnesota today. Meantime, close look in here at the metro area. Again, we're done with the precip. We're not going to see anything more later on today, unfortunately, because we would like to at least see some rain or some snow, right? We need it. We're not getting it, but totals, this is what we're going to end up with, 3 to 7 inches for us here into the near mountains. A little further away, we're looking at maybe 5 to 10, 8 to 16 inches worth of snowfall, and that is certainly all needed. Now the snow, again, it's pretty much all done. Next chance for snow comes in on Friday. It's during the morning hours. It's not a big deal. It'll lead to a little bit of snow for us, and then we'll be over and done with that snow. But again, a little bit more snow to go in the mountains, and then we get some of those calmer conditions for at least for your Thursday, and then by Friday, a bit more light snow into the mountains. That won't impact us here into Denver. All right, tomorrow, a little bit better, right? 52 degrees for us, mostly sunny. Winds a lot calmer. We're not worried about the winds for tomorrow. We are worried about the fire danger a little bit, though, for your day tomorrow. That's just one thing to keep in mind. By the way, Holyoke, 74-mile-an-hour wind gust just now. Just chiming in with that one. But again, tomorrow, much calmer than your day today. And then that 7-day forecast looks like this. You can't see at the very far right of your screen, 59 for next Wednesday. So we kind of go back into this calm pattern, right? We're just looking at a little bit in the way of those calmer conditions for the next little while. So again, once we get past today, it's really just today where we're seeing this very, very active weather, but we've got only a few more hours to go before things do get better. So hopefully that gives you a pretty good synopsis of that forecast. Not seeing any questions at this point, so going to wrap it up here, but thank you so much for joining us here on 9 News Watch for a detailed look at your Colorado weather forecast. Stay safe for the next couple of hours, stay inside, and then things will get better around 4, 5, 6 o'clock or so tonight. Chief Meteorologist Kathy Sabin is in today. She'll be in at 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10 with your detailed forecast on 9 News' family of networks. Thanks so much for joining us, and again, stay safe. I'll see you right back here tomorrow.